USS Nimitz is a supercarrier of the United States Navy, and the lead ship of her class, one of the largest warships in the world. She was laid down, launched and commissioned as CVN-68 but was redesignated CVN-68 on 30 June 1975 as part of the fleet realignment. The ship was named for World War II Pacific Fleet Commander Chester W.Nimitz, who was the Navy's third Fleet Admiral. Nimitz had her home port at Naval Station Norfolk until 1987, when she was relocated to Puget Sound Naval Shipyard in Bremerton, Washington. Following her refueling and complex overhaul in 2001, her home port was changed to NAS North Island in San Diego, California. The home port of Nimitz was again moved to Naval Station Everett in 2012. In January 2015, Nimitz changed home port from Naval Station Everett to Naval Base Kitsap. With the inactivation of Enterprise in 2012, Nimitz is now the oldest American carrier in active service. Construction. Nimitz was authorized by Congress in fiscal year 1967, and Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Co. in Newport News, Virginia was awarded the $106.5 million. The keel was laid down the 22nd of June 1968. It was christened on 13 May 1972 by Catherine Nimitz, the daughter of the late Admiral Nimitz. Nimitz was delivered to the Navy in 1975, and was commissioned at Naval Station Norfolk on 3 May 1975 by President Gerald Ford. Overhauls October 1975 to December 1975 post-shakedown availability. May 1977 to July 1977 selected restricted availability. October 1978 to January 1979 selected restricted availability. October 1980 to January 1981 selected restricted availability. April 1982 to June 1982 selected restricted availability. Waist catapult bridle catcher removed. June 1983 to July 1984 complex overhaul. Forward port sponson added. Mk25 BPDM replaced with Mk29. 3 CIWS added. November 1985 to March 1986 selected restricted availability. Forward port sponson changed, enlarged. August 1987 to February 1988 selected restricted availability. August 1989 to March 1990 selected restricted availability. October 1991 to May 1992 selected restricted availability. December 1993 to January 1995 selected restricted availability. Portbow catapult bridle removed. June 1996 to January 1997 selected restricted availability. May 1998 to June 2001 refueling and complex overhaul. Starboard bow catapult bridle removed. Top 2 levels of the island replaced. New antenna, mast, new radar tower, 2 ram replace 1 CIWS 1 Mk29 and forward port sponson. Aft starboard sponson, 2 CIWS at island, stern removed. February 2004 to August 2004 planned incremental availability. Catwalk grating was replaced and flight deck resurfaced. March 2006 to September 2006 planned incremental availability. July 2008 to January 2009 planned incremental availability. November 2010 to March 2012 planned incremental availability. 2 CIWS added to forward starboard sponson enlargement. Newport stern sponson. Nimitz Carrier Strike Group. Nimitz is part of Carrier Strike Group 11 with Carrier Air Wing 11 embarked, with Nimitz as the flagship of the strike group and the home of the commander of Destroyer Squadron 23. Ships of DESRON-23 US Howard Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. US John Paul Jones Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. US Pinckney Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. US Sampson Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. US Bruins Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. Squadrons of CVW-11 Strike Fighter Squadron 154 Black Knights with Boeing FA-18F Super Hornets. Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 323 Death Rattlers with McDonnell Douglas FA-18C Hornets. Strike Fighter Squadron 146 Blue Diamonds with FA-18C Hornets. Strike Fighter Squadron 147 Argonauts with FA-18E Super Hornets. Electronic Attack Squadron 142 Grey Wolves with Boeing EA-18G Growlers. Carrier Airborne Early Warning Squadron 117 Wallbangers with Northrop Grumman E-2 Hawkeyes. Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 6 Screamin' Indians with Sikorsky MH-60 Hawks. Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 75 Wolfpack with MH-60 Hawks. Fleet Logistics Support Squadron 30 Detachment 3 Providers with Grumman C-2 Greyhound. Service history. 1970s US Nimitz first deployed to the Mediterranean Sea on 7 July 1976 with Carrier Air Wing 8 embarked in company with the nuclear-powered cruisers US South Carolina and US California. In November 1976, Nimitz was awarded the Battle E from Commander, Naval Air Force U.S. Atlantic Fleet for being the most efficient and foremost aircraft carrier in the Atlantic Fleet. The cruise was uneventful, and the carrier returned to Norfolk, Virginia on 7 February 1977. A second uneventful Mediterranean cruise was conducted from 1 December 1977 to 20 July 1978. The third deployment began on 10 September 1979 to the Mediterranean. The ship moved to the Indian Ocean in response to the Iran hostage crisis in which the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran, was overtaken and 52 hostages were held. Prior to this trip, the ship took part in the shooting of the 1980 film The Final Countdown, whose story was specifically set aboard the Nimitz. After 4 months on station, Operation Evening Light was launched from Nimitz's decks in an attempt to rescue the U.S. Embassy staff. The mission was aborted after a helicopter crashed at a refueling point in the Iranian desert. The ship returned home 26 May 1980, having spent 144 days at sea. 1980s. On 25 May 1981, a Marine Corps EA-6B Prowler assigned to Carrier Air Wing 8 crashed on the flight deck, killing 14 crewmen and injuring 45 others. The Prowler was fuel critical after a bolter, and its crash and the subsequent fire and explosions destroyed or damaged 11 other aircraft. Despite having no connection to the accident, the media focused on the autopsy results of several members of the Nimitz's enlisted flight deck crew who were killed, who tested positive for marijuana. As a result, President Ronald Reagan instituted a zero-tolerance drug policy across all of the U.S. Armed Services, which started the mandatory drug testing of all U.S. military personnel. Nimitz deployed again to the Mediterranean on 3 August 1981. The ship, in company with US Forrestal, conducted a freedom of navigation exercise in international waters in the Gulf of Sidra near Libya on 18 and 19 August 1981. On the morning of 19 August 1981, 2 Grumman F-14 Tomcats of the F-41 were engaged by 2 Libyan Sukhoi Su-22s, resulting in the 2 Libyan aircraft being shot down in what became known as the Gulf of Sidra incident. Nimitz's fourth deployment, from the 10th of November 1982 to the 20th of May 1983, was to the Caribbean Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Nimitz deployed for a 5th time on the 8th of March 1985. On the 14th of June 1985, 2 Lebanese gunmen hijacked TWA Flight 847, which carried 153 passengers and crew and included Americans. In response, Nimitz was deployed to the coast of Lebanon, where it remained until August 1985. The embarked Air Wing 8 flew continuous sorties for 67 days, bombing several sites in Beirut including the runways of Beirut Rafik Hariri International Airport. The ship returned to Norfolk on the 4th of October 1985. Nimitz, again with CVW-8 embarked, departed Norfolk for its 6th and final Mediterranean deployment on the 30th of December 1986. After 4 months and numerous Mediterranean port visits, the carrier crossed the equator en route to Rio de Janeiro. From Rio de Janeiro, it proceeded south around Cape Horn and into the Pacific Ocean, after a brief stop in San Diego to offload its East Coast Air Wing. It arrived at its new home port of Bremerton, Washington, on the 2nd of July 1987. Nimitz deployed to the West and Pacific with carrier Air Wing 9 embarked on the 2nd of September 1988. During the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul, Nimitz provided security off the coast of South Korea. In October, it operated in the North Arabian Sea, participating in Operation Earnest Will, the protection of reflagged Kuwaiti tankers. On the 30th of November 1988, while in the Arabian Sea, a 20mm cannon accidentally fired during maintenance, striking a Car-6 intruder. The ensuing fire spread to 6 other aircraft, and 2 sailors were killed. Nimitz returned to Bremerton on the 2nd of March 1989. 1990s. On the 25th of February 1991, Nimitz departed Bremerton for the Persian Gulf in relief of US Ranger in the aftermath of Operation Desert Storm, returning to Bremerton on the 24th of August 1991. Nimitz again deployed to the Persian Gulf on the 1st of February 1993, in support of Operation Southern Watch, returning on the 1st of August 1993. On the 27th of November 1995, Nimitz deployed to the Western Pacific, Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf with carrier Air Wing 9. In March 1996, it patrolled the waters off Taiwan amid missile tests conducted by the Chinese in the area, becoming the first American warship to pass through the Taiwan Strait since 1976. It also cruised the Persian Gulf in support of Southern Watch, prior to returning from deployment on the 20th of May 1996. Between 14 to 24 July 1997, Nimitz participated in Joint Task Force Exercise 97-2 off the coast of Southern California, which also served as a Revolution in Strike Warfare demonstration. The latter event was designed to demonstrate the capability of an aircraft carrier and its embarked air wing to project carrier-based air power into literal warfare. On the 20th of July 1997, Nimitz and carrier Air Wing 9 began a high-intensity strike campaign. When flight operations were completed 4 days later, Nimitz and carrier Air Wing 9 had carried out 771 strikes sorties while dropping 1,337 bombs on target. Carrier Air Wing 9 flew 975 fixed-wing sorties during this 4-day surge operation. Almost 80% of the sorties flown were strike sorties, with strike support accounting for another 10%. F/A-18 Hornet strike fighters flew nearly 80% of the strike sorties. Of the 771 strike sorties, 727 were loaded with ordnance, while 44 were electronic support by EA-6B prowlers. During this 4-day period, only a portion of the medium-range interdiction strikes required tanking support. KC-135 and KC-130 tanker aircraft provided most of this support. S-3 Vikings conducted recovery tanking and supplied more than one-third of the fuel passed to Carrier Air Wing 9 aircraft during this surge operation. This surge had been preceded by a 16-hour preparation after undergoing 4 days that had generated about 700 fixed-winged sorties. A following study by the Center for Naval Analysis determined that Nimitz and Carrier Air Wing 9 could have maintained this high sortie operational tempo for another 12 to 24 hours before requiring equipment maintenance, rest for its crews and its ordnance and aviation fuel stocks to be replenished. On the 1st of September 1997, Nimitz began an around-the-world cruise, again supporting Southern Watch, which ended in Newport News, Virginia on the 2nd of March 1998. It spent the next 3 years undergoing a nuclear refueling and complex overhaul that ended on the 25th of June 2001. 2000s On the 21st of September 2001, after sea trials in the Virginia Capes, Nimitz began its transit around South America to its new home port of Nares, North Island in San Diego, California, arriving there on the 13th of November 2001. Aircraft from Carrier Air Reserve Wing 20 were embarked for the transit. From January to May 2002, it underwent a 4-month post-shakedown maintenance availability at North Island. During this time, Advanced Combat Direction System was installed. Nimitz's 11th operational deployment began on the 3rd of March 2003. It relieved US Abraham Lincoln in the Persian Gulf in mid-April 2003, launching Carrier Air Wing 11 aircraft sorties over Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. It returned to San Diego on the 5th of November 2003. Nimitz and CVW-11 were awarded the 2003 Battle E and Flatley Award in early 2004. Nimitz, again with CVW-11, deployed to the Persian Gulf on the 7th of May 2005, returning on the 8th of November 2005. This deployment marked 3 decades of service, and was depicted in the Emmy Award-winning 2008 PBS documentary series Carrier. In June 2006, Nimitz was awarded the 2005 Battle E. The Carrier departed North Island for its 13th deployment on the 2nd of April 2007 to the Arabian Sea, relieving US Dwight D. Eisenhower in support of OIF. It anchored off Chennai, India on the 2nd of July 2007 as part of efforts to expand bilateral defense cooperation between India and the United States. Sailors participated in community work in Chennai prior to departing on the 5th of July 2007, along with the destroyer US Pinckney towards the Persian Gulf. It returned to North Island on the 30th of September 2007. On the 24th of January 2008, Nimitz deployed to the Pacific for a surge deployment. On the 9th of February 2008, 2 Russian Tu-95 Bear bombers overflew the carrier in the Western Pacific. 4 FA-18C Hornets were launched when the bombers were 500 miles away from the U.S. ships, and intercepted the bombers 50 miles south of Nimitz. 2 FA-18s trailed one of the bombers, which twice flew over the deck of the carrier at an altitude of 2,000 feet, while the other 2 FA-18s trailed another Tu-95 circling about 50 miles away from the carrier. Reportedly, there was no radio communication between the American and Russian aircraft. According to the Department of Defense, one of the 2 aircraft was said to have flown above Nimitz at an altitude of 2,000 feet. On the same day, Russian aircraft entered Japanese airspace, which caused the Japanese to raise protests to the Russian ambassador in Tokyo. Again, on the 5th of March 2008, a Russian bomber came within 3 to 5 nautical miles and flew 2,000 feet above Nimitz and its battle group. 2 FA-18 fighters intercepted the Russian aircraft and escorted it out of the area. Nimitz was awarded the Navy Battle E for battle efficiency for 2007, along with an Air Award for food service excellence. It returned to its home port of San Diego on the 3rd of June 2008. The Nimitz strike group, including CVW-11, departed the States for a scheduled Western Pacific deployment on the 31st of July 2009, and began to fly combat missions in support of Operation Enduring Freedom the 21st of September 2010. In January 2010, while in the Persian Gulf, the ship was awarded the Meritorious Unit Commendation for its back-to-back deployments in support of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in 2007 and 2008. The award was presented by Admiral Gary Roughhead in a ceremony on the ship the 6th of January 2010. Nimitz visited Hong Kong for 5 days in February 2010 to allow its crew to rest and visit the city. The visit occurred despite China previously preventing a visit by the carrier US Kitty Hawk. On the 9th of December 2010, the Navy formally announced that Everett, Washington was to be the new home port for Nimitz. This move was expected to save the Navy $100 million. On the 9th of March 2012, Nimitz arrived at its new home port of Naval Station Everett after spending nearly a week at sea conducting post-overhaul sea trials. In March 2012, Nimitz arrived at its new home port of Naval Station Everett in Washington state after more than a year of maintenance work in Bremerton. It replaced the Nimitz-class carrier Abraham Lincoln. On the 3rd of August 2012, Nimitz departed from Pearl Harbor after a 2-day port call, arriving at Nass, North Island on the 9th of August 2012 to begin Fleet Replacement Squadron carrier qualifications. On the 6th of October 2012, a Bell Boeing V-22 Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft from Squadron VMM-165 landed and refueled on board Nimitz. This operation was part of an evaluation of the feasibility of the MV-22 as a potential replacement for the C-2 Greyhound carrier on-board delivery cargo transport aircraft. After the inactivation of US Enterprise on the 1st of December 2012, Nimitz became the oldest U.S. carrier in service, although Enterprise retains the record for longest serving. The BBC reported that Nimitz was located in the Persian Gulf, ready to contribute to an operation against Syria when President Obama ordered a military strike. 2 days later, it was said that the carrier and its task group had been rerouted westwards across the Arabian Sea. It was reported that the ship, in its 8th month out to sea, transited the Suez Canal on the 20th of October 2013 into the U.S. 6th Fleet Area of Responsibility, where the Navy intended to keep it for a few weeks conducting joint training with Allied nations before returning it home. Nimitz returned to Everett on the 16th of December 2013. In late 2014, following the completion completion of workup qualifications. Nimitz participated in her first deployment, a 2-week multinational fleet exercise involving the 3rd Fleet, as well as ships from the Royal Canadian Navy and JMSDE. Following the conclusion of the exercise, on November 3, the first F-35C Lightning II to land on an aircraft carrier recovered aboard Nimitz to begin a 2-week development testing deployment. This saw a pair of aircraft from VX-23 undertaking carrier operations of launch, recovery and handling aboard ship in both day and night conditions. The initial deployment was completed on the 14th of November 2014. In 2015, Nimitz transferred to Bremerton to undergo a 16-month maintenance cycle. Eventual replacement. The Nimitz-class carriers have a lifespan of approximately 50 years. Nimitz itself is projected to be replaced around 2025 to 2027 by the Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carrier USS John F. Kennedy. The exact date of the ship's inactivation and decommissioning will likely depend on Defense Department funding considerations, awards and decorations.